and welcome to the MudRoom, our weekly free uncommon sense parenting class. How is everyone today? I am super excited to dig into our topic today. How's everybody holding up? We're still waiting here in Ontario to see if they're going to let our kids go back to school and daycare. I'm not going to lie or even try to hide it. I am frustrated. I'm annoyed that parents are constantly having to pivot and aren't being given any time to plan or problem solve because everything is always so freaking last minute. But I'm not trying to dwell on it. Logan's actually doing quite well in virtual school, thankfully, though I'm not even enforcing that he participate in even half of it. And Owen's just being Owie. He's just playing. I am super thankful that we don't have a ton of snow on the ground this year because it's made getting them outside to play a lot easier. All right, before we jump into our class today, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Allana Robinson, and I'm a parenting coach for parents of toddlers, preschoolers, and kindergartners. I help you understand why your kids are misbehaving and how to fix it without yelling, shaming, or timeouts. I'm your host here on the MudRoom. I'm also the host of the Parenting Posse Facebook group, and I'm the creator of the Parentability program, where I help you raise well-behaved kids of your own. If you're here, say hi, and while you're here, please give this video a like, and if you aren't already, subscribe so we can make sure that you never miss another class. Okay, so today we're talking about our kiddos always being the same. This has been top of mind for me for the last several months because the end of my 2021 was overwhelmingly monopolized by helping my clients collaborate with their children's teachers and daycare providers. And this was very much a recurring theme across institutions, across different kinds of programs, across provinces and states and countries. And that's this very odd concept. The children are always the same. They never have bad days. They shouldn't be affected by lack of sleep, hunger, tensions at home, grief, exciting things that are happening at home, siblings, deployments, illnesses, all the things in life that we go through. Somehow there's this belief that children should not be affected by any of it, and that young children can be reasonably expected to maintain their composure and adherence to expectations despite all of the stressors that they have going on in their lives. One example that sticks out in my mind was a principal in Australia very condescendingly explaining to me that it really doesn't matter that this 4-year-old child has a severe chronic medical issue, that they're expected to show up and follow the rules just like everyone else. Or a teacher in the southern United States rolling their eyes at me and saying very snarkily that the child in question is able to sit still just fine in the morning, so they should also be able to sit for 20 to 40 minutes at 5:30 in the evening. Or an administrator semi-local to me rolling her eyes and saying, I know she has ADHD and her father is deployed right now, but that's no excuse for the child being more reactive and emotional lately. Our children aren't robots, people. They're humans who have a range of emotions, a range of stressors, a range of medical needs, a range of exciting things going on in their lives, and they're young. It's not fair to compare a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 7, 8, 9-year-old to an adult and be like, well, I'm dealing with a lot of emotions and I still show up to school and adhere to social norms. Good for you. You're an adult with a fully developed brain and years of practice. And quite frankly, we shouldn't be expecting adults to be acting like everything is fine when it isn't either. That's how we create mental health issues. Our kids do not always have the same capacity day to day or even hour to hour. This is why looking at behavior through the lens of stressors is so helpful and can have such a big impact on children's behavior really quickly. Because when we start looking at the stress a child is experiencing and taking steps to mitigate it or help them cope with it, their capacity improves. This is why I like the gas tank analogy so much. In case you're new around here and you've never heard my gas tank analogy, I'll just quickly review it. In Uncommon Sense Parenting, we talk a lot about everybody having a gas tank, just like your car. And just like your car, sometimes it's fuller than others. Depending on how you're feeling physically, any emotions you're experiencing, the demands on you, anxiety, if you're worried about anything, how you slept, and the last time you got a chance to refill your tank, you may be walking around with a full tank. Or you may not be. And I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of having a practically empty tank all the time right now. And everything that you do sucks some energy out of your tank. It's just a matter of how much energy it takes. Things that are routine, like brushing your teeth, may suck a very small amount of energy. Things like giving a presentation probably suck a lot of energy out of your tank. But it doesn't matter how routine something is. If you don't have enough gas in your tank to do it, you can't do it. Because everything needs some amount of gas. And that's generally how most people see misbehavior happen. A child is running on fumes, and then a demand gets put on them that they don't have the gas in the tank to do, and they explode, or they stall out. Which is why the expectation that a child who can sit for a 40-minute circle time in the morning, which, by the way, is completely developmentally inappropriate. Circle times should never be longer than 10 minutes, but that's a whole other episode. The expectation that they should also be able to do that at 4:30 in the evening or 5:30 in the evening is ridiculous. Especially when you haven't given them any refills in the form of breaks, sensory input, co-regulation, or rest in between those two times. It's like expecting your car to be able to do a 2-hour drive just because it was able to successfully make the drive in the morning. Only you didn't stop to get more gas in between those two trips. Or the expectation that a 4-year-old with a chronic medical condition should be able to meet the same expectations with the same number of breaks as their typical completely healthy peers. That's like comparing the mileage of a car going up a steep hill to a car driving on a completely flat road. Even if they're the exact same car with the exact same size of gas tank, which nobody is and nobody does, the car going up the steep hill is not going to get the same distance as the car driving on an easy flat road. They're dealing with something extra that takes extra energy. Same as the kiddo with ADHD with a deployed parent. Their road isn't necessarily completely flat most of the time, but the bumps are gentle enough that yes, they can generally cope. But throw in a deployment, and now they're going up that steep hill. So while they had plenty of gas available to manage their neurodivergence typically, now they don't. This is also the reason why we see such big changes so quickly in parentability. I was so proud of one of my newer clients. She joined during our enrollment period back in November over the Black Friday weekend. So, what was that? November 26th. So when she joined, she told me that her son was a breath away from being kicked out of school. He was throwing tables and chairs, which is not unusual for parentability families when they're new. He was having massive explosions of anger at school. He was assaulting staff. He was using language that he knew wasn't appropriate. He was threatening people. Like, the list goes on. So she joined, and she drove right into implementing. She started making tweaks as she went and learned more. On December 5th, we had a group call. And she told me that he hadn't had a single violent episode at school the entire previous week. She only started implementing 7 days before, people. And the week before, he'd been having 2+ episodes a day. So massive change just by implementing some preliminary steps. On December 9th, so less than a week later, she told me that for the first time, she was able to avoid a massive meltdown as he entered the school that typically would have resulted in him assaulting her and anyone who tried to help her. Instead, they worked through it calmly, and he went on to have an amazing day. That is the massive difference that recognizing that our children's capacity is not consistent and adjusting accordingly can make. That fast. 2 weeks from tossing tables to calm kid. Now I know this isn't easy. I'm not saying it's easy or even that it's simple. She worked her butt off for those 2 weeks. But it wasn't difficult because it was super complicated. It's quite simple. It's difficult because it requires us to let go of all these old beliefs about our kids and what motivates their behavior. It's hard because we have to constantly be reframing the behavior we see and practice changing our responses to that behavior so that, what am I trying to say here? It's difficult because we have to constantly be changing our responses to that behavior, many of which are deeply ingrained in us. There's a lot of unlearning to go along with new learning. And that's a lot of energy output on our part. It's nowhere near the energy she was constantly putting out the fires that her son was creating, though. Dr. Schenker has a mantra, a saying, I guess. He's always saying that we need to ask why and why now. Why are they behaving this way? Why are they behaving this way right now? And spoiler alert, the answer to that is almost always that there's a stressor we aren't taking into account. So that's my challenge to everyone. Start 2022 off by committing to asking yourself why and why now every time you see your child behaving in a way that you don't want. And then try to solve that problem instead of changing the behavior. You'll notice that that's a lot more productive. The behavior is just a symptom. We need to actually solve the problem. Just like we were talking about last week when we were talking about bullies. And if you're having a difficult time figuring it out, come debrief in the parenting posse. We'd love to help you unpack it. The link for the group is in the description. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here with me. I will see you next week for another Uncommon Sense parenting class.